I'm hoping that you start seeing a whole different picture of the Scriptures and how much there is there that we have missed. Because in all the literature I've ever read, I've never even seen this. Pieces, but not the whole thing. And it's right there. When we got to the end of chapter 2, there's this apex where it said the man and his wife were naked and they were not ashamed. And that nakedness, we said, had to do with physical, but it also had to do with emotional. Because this is what we're created with. These are life dimensions. We were created with the physical, that is, we're matter, the emotional arena, the cognitive, the relational or social, but I like the word relational because that's heart bonds that we make, and spiritual. Now what's important is these are 5 facets of life that we are created with. And they all worked in harmony, and they were all under the guidance of the spiritual. And that is, the spiritual is the area of faith. It's the area of belief about life. It's the area of trust. It is the meaning of life interpreter. Let me kind of unpack that for you a little bit. When we talk about physical, we're talking about being matter. And we experience that here, right? Just being here. We're in the same room and I can see you and you're there. We also talk about emotional, which has to do with our feeling responses to what happens. In life, right. Cognitive is our learning, our ability to learn, to think, to grow mentally, to understand. And relational are, I'm just going to write heart bond. So we create bonds with people and animals and things that we find meaningful and make our life richer. When we get to the spiritual, this is the area that's kind of a little strange. When I was younger, I used to think when I heard spiritual, I'd think, oh, ghosts and stuff, you know. But really, when you understand the spiritual dimension of humanity, it is that dimension. Animals don't do this. They don't ask, why do I exist? They just exist and go and eat and sleep and procreate and whatever. And that's what they're about. They don't. I've never seen a dog go, why do I exist? Doesn't mean they don't have feelings, because they do. Animals have all these to some degree or another. This, if it is with animals, it's very, very rudimentary in the way we understand it. When it comes to the meaning of life for humans, we look at it, life in a larger framework. That is, we might have something physical which can cause emotions, right? In fact, emotions are usually a response to something going on physically, or relationally, or cognitively. I'm thinking something that creates an emotion. But when you get to the spiritual, that is a framework that we see the meaning of all the rest in. So, you can ask a spiritual question from a physical event. I get hurt. I lose somebody I love in a car accident. And now, why, God? Why? So I'm asking a meaning question from a physical event. That's truly important to understand, because how we interpret life shows what we mean, what we value, and all that, right? So what's important to us is from our interpretation, what things mean. Now, one of the things that God was doing here in Genesis 1 and 2 that we didn't quite talk about was He had a value system that He was instituting, believe it or not, just in the way he was creating everything. It comes through the creation and from who God is. So his system is about what is valuable and what God sees as valuable. And we can see that he made value statements, didn't he? Over and over again. And he did it not just stating it, but by what he did. We saw how much he valued it. All his energy was about creating. So what is God's value? What's really valuable to God? Life. Not only that, but what's really valuable to God? Humanity, we are. And yes, love. And then I'm going to say this because it's all tied together. Creation. All of it in God's eyes was good because it's about life, and God is the God of life. I can't stress that enough because that's what really comes through when you listen. This God is about life. He longs for life. His whole intent and will is for life. That's what he was doing in creation, is giving life, preparing for life, like the expectant parent who runs around and does all this stuff to get ready for the baby who's coming. So God is making a place to live for the baby that was coming at him. And he was putting beauty. If you ever notice, it said he made trees that were pleasant to the eyes. They would dazzle your spirit by just looking at them. And I'm from a place that does that, so from the Pacific Northwest. Beautiful there. And he created all these in us. He wanted us to have pleasure. He wanted us to know joy. I remember one time I was preaching on God wanting us to know joy, and a woman came up to me after church and she said, I had been taught that anything that is fun is evil. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I said, you know what I said in my heart? Oh my goodness, who taught you that? Who taught you that? The distortion of the picture of God creates a distortion here. So how we see God means how we see ourselves. And further, how we see others from that, and then how we see all creation. They're all tied in. God, when he made everything, it was all to be in relationship with each other. From the planets and the stars bringing life, to humans caring for and nurturing for life, to the bees buzzing around and taking pollen everywhere and spreading life. So when you actually come to it, life is God's value. What did humans do to be valuable? What performance did they do? Nothing.
They were just born.
They were just God's creation. So the value is declared value by God because he says so, not because we do anything. In fact, the life that he created us to live was not in order to be alive, but because we are his. And the bees doing what they do is the what you might call the life pattern that he gave them, the role that they would play. And they're just buzzing around, taking the nectar from one place to another, is also filling the life role. The apples and the fruit just coming into being and having seeds in themselves and turning red and ripening on the tree, just by being, are bringing life. And that's the God who exists. That's the God who is God. So he was bringing this value system in, and if we have a different value system that says something else, we are believing a fallen view of God. Because humanity did nothing except receive life. It's a gift. Right? You can't do anything. In fact, you were born and it came to you without you choosing it. Right? your parents got together and an event happened and then boom, you were born. And you slid down the highway and here you are. And you open your eyes up and you aren't even quite aware yet that you are for a while, but you are. You just open up your eyes and there you are. So you did nothing to do that. Nothing to earn it, nothing to deserve it, because none of that is in God's plan. Deserving, earning, working, none of that. And if we are to maintain who God is, in the next chapter, we have to remember this is the true picture of God. And anything that goes against that is a lie. It's a distortion. It's deception. Meant to change our view of God and thus change our view of ourselves and our world. All right, and we said from Genesis 1 and 2, there was a created purpose. And here's that created purpose. Star this. Our created purpose is God created humanity to enjoy an intimate, life-giving, healthy, that is whole, complete, relationship of trust with God, with each other,